Hello everyone. Today I'm going to start with a new topic that is policy types, and very briefly I'm going to talk about what are various policies which has been initiated. There are many policies I had discussed earlier also. Environmental policies, economic policies, social policies, health policy. But so very briefly, I'm going to talk about all these policies in this first lecture of mine. And I hope this is going to help you to understand, at least to get an idea that what a particular policy talks about, what is a major objective or goal of that policy, and also it will reveal that in Indian context what policies are there, what measures have been taken with regard to that particular policy. As I said, that understanding different types of policies is crucial for effective program, effective governance, and they are classified in based on their objective, on their scope, as well as the impact. Now, if we talk about any nation, ours is a very diverse nation, and looking into the diverse population, we create policies so that everyone in the population is included to achieve maximum welfare and to achieve maximum benefit from government intervention of through the efforts from through the efforts of government. So when we say various policy types, or even the policies are there, so looking into the diversification of issues, agenda, problems, uh, in a way, policies are just not only meant for a specific target population, but since it is particularly public policies, because they cater to a larger area, wider, the scope of public policies is much more. So these policies, they are with the basic objective, they gives a clear cut demarcation of what is the goal, what is the primary significance, and what is the primary objective of that policy, and for whom the policy has been created. Classifying, policies can be classified into different types, usually based on their purpose and the impact. It is distributive, redistributive, regulatory, constituent policies, there's conflict policies, there's bargaining policies, but then usually they have been classified into these 4 5 categories. But there are more, and we will be talking about each of these policies. And in regard to these redistributive or distributive or constituent or regulatory or conflict or bargaining, we have other such policies like economic, social, health, urban, infrastructure development, science and technology, environmental. So all policies are there, and they are covered under this heading. Now, if you talk about the distributive policies, distributive policies are the type of policies which is designed to allocate resources, benefits, services to a specific group or to a particular sector of society. And these policies, they often promote economic growth, economic development, they bring about social integration, social welfare, and other public, or other public goods which is being distributed evenly amongst the population. The idea behind distributive policies is to provide maximum benefit to the people and to specific target population. And this could be like it could be in the form of donors, it could be in form of funding. It actually looks into the it looks into the perspective of distributing government resources which are available in the particular region, and like funding, subsidies or grants. Distributive policies, they are typically non-controversial in the sense, because they tend to provide a larger, broad range of services, and it tend to provide broader the target population, the recipients of distributive policies would be much more broader, without directly imposing any cost on the groups, like resource allocation, or I would say broader benefits. These are designed to benefit a wide range of individuals, groups, in a way that would not that would be bring about a balance in the society. It would at least bridge the gap between those who are privileged and those who who are not privileged. So distributive policies of the government and is to cater to the needs to the people, to different segment of the, so it is being evenly distributed different sectors and different segment. Next is the redistributive policies. Redistributive policies again are government policies which are aimed at distributing wealth, income or resources from one group to another group. So initially first one was distributive one, that is which is primarily the most significant and most important one, because here the government has to distribute the resources to all the population irrespective, which is not confined to any particular group but to all segments. And distributive policies, it could be also subsidies, grants, infrastructure development, which is equal distribution of resources among the entire population. Everyone is included in that part of now. Redistributive, because the word re is attached to this word, redistributive policies, again it is government initiated policies, and it is a redistribution of wealth, income, resources from one group to another group. It often reduces economic disparities or economic inequalities, or and at the same time it provides supports to the marginalized communities. Now these policies had been typically involved through the reallocation and collection of resources from taxation. There is we all know that, particularly in India, because see, I am discussing policies, these policies are universal into some extent, but they also but my major focus of these policies would be in the Indian context. Now when we say that like tax collection or taxation, we have a tax slab for everyone, for the middle income group. There is an income band related to that, who is more liable. Although I feel that every citizen is paying something or the other, because when we are purchasing any commodity, when we are buying any commodity, taxes are being paid in that capacity also. But yes, if we talk about the tax slab and we talk about whatever the income is, on the basis of certain amount of income, the tax has to be paid. So taxation from those who are more affluent, or business class, or businessmen, and or particular sectors, and also the transfer of these resources to lower income groups. Again, if we look into the redistributive policies, there are means and resources of redistributing the resources, or at least giving back to the nation or to the country. Like, so if not only the government but parallel institutions such as like and non-governmental organizations, voluntary institutions, even now CSR activities have been initiated by the business family, so or the MNCs or multinational organizations and institutions and companies, where they now have to give back to the society in some way or the other. So resource allocation, unlike distributive policies which provide broad benefits without taking from others, in the distributive policies, it is again one more difference is that it is particularly related to government's responsibility, because when we are paying taxes, or when the government is collecting remuneration or certain amount of monetary benefits, so it becomes again imperative for the government to provide those basic standards of living to the larger population or to the larger community. Whereas the redistributive policies, from here, in the redistributive part, policies or rather involves taking resources from other groups. Usually it is the affluent group, or the business class, or those who fall under the higher income bracket through taxations, through other revenues. So the redistributive and distributive, the difference is only that in distributive you are not taking anything from anyone, but in redistributive it has been transference of wealth, income or resources from one group to another without affecting the other group in any, or creating any such crisis or any such impediments conditions for that group to progress and grow. So the main objective and the main goal of redistributive policies, of course, is to tackle or to reduce disparities in wealth, in income, in accessibility, in opportunities, and also it provides ample space, ample scope for to the disadvantaged section to have accessibility, to have freedom, to engage actively to in the society's economic, social, political pursuits. And through these policies, it gives ample opportunity to disadvantaged group to grow and progress. And there are a lot of examples I would cite, like progressive taxation is there, then welfare programs have been initiated, health and education subsidies are there for the people, then minimum wage laws have been there in order to bring about a balance in the society. The next is the regulatory policies. Now, regulatory policies, they are designed or they are made to control, to modify the behavior of individuals or groups. When you talk, the word itself suggests regulatory. Again, it is a government rules and regulations which has a means of social control, or it tries to control and influence the behavior of individuals, business, organization, institutions, groups. The goal of regulatory policies, it is to protect public welfare and ensures fair competition amongst the people. It prevent practices that may harm the consumers or the environment or the economy. So regulatory policies, as the term suggests, it tries to regulate the moral conduct, the behavioral aspect of individual groups. So, and this is again done through rules, standards, legislation, laws, regulatory policies. They establish standards that entities must follow. There has to be a compliance, there has to be a conformity when you talk about regulatory policies, which looks into safety requirements, environmental protection, or financial regulations, to controlling financial regulations in the form of tax, in form of revenues, in terms of fine, whatever it could be. So these rules actually typically are enforced by regulatory agencies, and these agencies would be judicial agencies, this would be executive, economic institutions, political institutions, social institutions. And it also the task of the main purpose or the objective of another objective of regulatory policies is that protecting public interest. Regulatory policies, they're often aimed at protecting the health, safety and rights of the individuals of the larger population, as well as maintaining market fairness. So when you talk about regulation in financial matters, inflation, in economic activity, regulation in social aspect, regulation in health issues, so they are used to address societal problems like financial misconduct or unsafe working conditions, or maybe pollution, or so they are sanctions, there are rules, there are standards, there are practices, there are laws, legislations. So they, in fact, these regulatory policies, they involve government oversight, and their violation can lead to penalties. It can lead to penalties such as fines, legal action, or revocation of licenses. So depending upon the what kind of violation has been done, and these are, so there are a lot of regulations. Environmental regulations are there, consumer protections are there, workplace safety concerns are there, financial regulations and antitrust laws. All these are being created to provide, to bring up, to regulate the societal norms, societal practices, and also to maintain law and order. When you talk about regulatory, it also tries to bring about a control, maintenance of that law and order, maintenance of harmony. There is no disorganization or disorientation when everybody has to abide and conform to these policies. Then constituent policies, they refer, which are concerned, or rather these policies, they have been established the structure and operation of government. They are concerned with the establishment of organizing, restructuring government institutions, processes and procedures. Now these policies primarily, they deal with administrative frameworks. They deal with the creation of reform of, or the creation or reform of political and administrative frameworks within which the other policies would function, like the distributive policies are being the regulatory policies or the redistributive policies which are being implemented. So the constant policies particularly refer to who governs and how governance happen. Okay, what is the rather than directly influencing the economy or social conditions. So constant policies, they provide an institutional base, and the constitutional provisions are there which safeguards the interest, which protects the larger population, which provide means and resources, which provides welfare activities to the people. So these are more of a structural based, and it talks about what is the functioning, what is the operation of a government in terms of creating a policy or formulating a policy, implementing a policy, monitoring a policy. It focuses on the government structure. So we can say that constant policies, shape how the government itself functions, by organizing its institutions and defining roles and responsibilities. For example, they may create, new agencies, and establish commissions, or or any such protection agency, environmental agency. So will determine the political affairs. And these policies, these policies are procedural in nature, because they set the rules, how decisions are being made for the decision making process, and how the policies have to be implemented, and how authority has to be divided among the various branches of government. So the constant policy also talks about the hierarchy in the governance, that in through what channels the policies would be made available to the target population. And if I would like to talk about the certain examples, like creating new agencies, as already said, establishing institutions and commissions, then constitutional amendments, policies that would involve changes to maintain nation's constitutional changes, voting rights, or separation of powers, or devolution of powers, or decentralization of power, structure the judiciary, then legislative rules, internal rules of how legislative body would function, and then electoral system. The next is the conflict policy. Now, these, apart from the four distributive, redistributive, regulatory, and constituent policies, there are other types of policies when we are going to talk about. That is the conflict policy. Now, focus on conflict policy, rather the conflict policy particularly refers to policies and strategies which has been designed, which has been created to manage, to prevent, resolve conflicts within or between groups, communities, nations, and so forth. And these conflicts can arise, the root cause of such conflicts could be anything. It could be political, it could be social, it could be economic, or military tensions. And they typically aim to reduce violence, address underlying grievances, create conditions for conducive living conditions, for lasting peace and stability. And the major part of conflict policies, like it deals with addressing what kind of disputes are there, and at which and particularly the disputes that might escalate into violence or social unrest. And it happens many a times that a minor a fight, or a minor tussle between two groups can be escalated, and it could turn out to be very violent, or it could turn out to create a lot of social unrest and discomfort in the society. So, and it is both within a country, internal conflict, and between nations, between countries, that would be international conflict. And so policies, treaties, and when you talk about internal as well as external conflict and social unrest, there are covenants, there are international bodies which looks into that, how the various nations and the state would be signing these treaties and conventions. Uh, Through conflict policies, you actually talk about prevention and mediation. Now, many conflict policies, they aim to prevent conflicts from occurring or escalating by using diplomacy, negotiations, mediation, or other peaceful means and resources. The major part is to not only, not to take action when the conflict has risen, but to be more proactive in subsiding, or rather in suppressing that conflicting opinion or any such untoward incident which might be blown out of proportion and becomes a more violent act, chaos in the society. So these policies particularly involves, peace talks, peacekeeping missions, signing of treaties, international conventions, covenants, all these establishment of ceasefire, right? And it addresses, particularly when you talk about conflict policies, it would try to focus on addressing the root causes of conflict. One, if you look at if we delve deeply into the challenges and the issues and problems of conflict policies, it actually focuses on addressing the root causes of conflict, such as it may be economic inequality, it may be ethnic or religious tensions, it could be political oppression, it could be ethnic cleansing, or any accessibility to resources. So by dealing with the underlying issues and problems, the goal is to create a more a more viable, a more stable, a more peaceful societies. And I would say that there are peace negotiation treaties, and there are your peacekeeping missions, counterterrorism strategies are there, and the United Nations peacekeeping missions is there, which is being deployed to conflict zones, to enforce ceasefires, to work effectively in order to help in maintaining peace and stability, and signing of agreements and treaties, so that both if it is about the international borders or if it is about international conflict within a nation also, there has to be certain agenda, conflict prevention programs which would foster integration and social harmony. So such type of activities would be initiated under this policy conflict head. Next is the bargaining policy. Now, bargaining policy, it refers to the use of negotiations and compromise to achieve policy goals or resolve, disputes between different stakeholders, such as, government officials, political parties, interest groups, and other actors. At this point of time, when we talk about industrial activities, or when we talk about factories and establishments, or in human resource management and larger MNCs, there is collective bargaining approach. There are trade unions which have been established, which is again trade unions act is there, which is again important significant step towards protection and safeguarding the interest of the laborers and and those who are at the factory level worker. So this type of policy making relies on dialogue, on negotiation, and there's a mutual understanding, concessions to reach to a particular agreement. And in fact, where through bargaining, they come to a middle point, because of course there are two parties involved and both are at their respective stand. So it is very difficult to achieve or come to a certain conclusion. So through this policy, often a situation, they have to accept the terms and conditions that both the parties have to make a certain move, because few points one party accepts of the other, and vice versa. So often in situations where competing interests are involved, and such kind of policy becomes more effective. As I said that trade unions are there, the collective bargaining approach is there, then workers' participation in management is there, which is also in industrial establishments, factories, organizations, institutions would follow. Even every institution's organization would have these bargaining policies, which comprises of of negotiation, where different groups, different section actors, they need to discuss, they need to talk about their preferences, their opinions, and also what are the roadblocks, looking into the roadblocks, the constraints, and trying to find a middle ground. So compromising, or rather compromise, is as each party may give their viewpoints, their opinion, in exchange of reaching an agreement. So the primary objective of bargaining policy is that to achieve a certain, to reach a certain agreement. There would be a lot of conflict of interest. It often, bargaining policy often arises in situations where there are conflicting viewpoints, or where there are conflicting interests, or where there is a lot of difference of opinion, where every group stands on its own points. So these conflicts can be overcome through whether it talks about economic aspect or social aspect or political. So this policy is a tool, it is taken as a tool to manage and reconcile these differences in peaceful and structured way. And bargaining often involves at a participatory approach, where there would be a round of negotiations, where party would be trying to make certain adjustment to meet their expectations, to safeguard their positions also. And there is a willingness, a compromise from all the stakeholders, or from all the people who are involved in that bargaining process. And the outcome of a bargaining policy, it largely depends upon the relative power influence of the involved parties, that watch how much power, how much influence they exert on the system, on the governance. And this power can come from various sources, the public support, financial resources, participation in or other. When we say that public support, financial resources, or political authority, or strategic advantages in negotiations, like budget negotiations are there, then peace treaties often there. In many, passing a national budget requires extensive bargaining between political parties and various interest groups, where, because we all know there are interest group functioning in every capacity, so which would talk about allocation of funds or to different sectors, right? Then trade-offs in policy making when creating new legislation, such as healthcare reform. Then politicians, they may need to negotiate various aspects of policies to satisfy different stakeholders. So these, when there is a conflict, when there is a conflict of in terms of perspectives or opinion, then this bargaining policy tends to become very helpful. And then we have substantive policies. Now, substantive policies, again, these are created by the government policies, these are initiated by the government policies, which directly address specific issues or problems, and by providing concrete solutions and problems or the actions. Now, substantive policies involve tangible government actions, right? They involve tangible government actions to solve societal problems, like as building infrastructure, funding educational programs, regulating industries, or enacting public health initiatives. Now, they deal with the key areas of public concern, or as I mentioned earlier, like healthcare or defense or environment or economy. And specific objectives of these policies, of the substantive policies, to have clear targeted goals, that what they want to achieve through this policy, whether if it's a health, it tries to, if it is talking about health policies and looking into the accessibility, public health particularly, it would be focusing on public health, accessibility of public to reach, to have accessibility to healthcare services. Then it also by reducing poverty, then one would be reducing poverty, boosting economic growth, or addressing environmental degradation. Now, substantive policies, they directly affect the citizens, and the citizens, the surroundings, the environment, the business class, because they provide services, they impose regulations or distribute resources amongst the larger population. Like healthcare, as I mentioned, that the healthcare policies may be, may provide accessibility to medical health, to medical care, health insurances, and a lot of safety nets, subsidies, sometimes the amount of, philanthropic work, sometimes the people, sometimes they waive off the expenditure involved the entire health system. So and there are, so every policy, they aimed at, when you talk about substantive policies, they aim at reducing the issues, they're trying to overcome the problems which have been associated, whether it's with a particular issue. So there are various types of substantive policies, like social policies, economic policies, environmental policies, and a lot of schemes, program, welfare measures have been there in order to, like, if you talk about welfare measures, for welfare aspect for women, children, youth, minorities, then policies for the older person, again policy on health and housing, environment. So these all becomes a substantive part, a part of the substantive policy. uh, Procedural policy, again, procedural policy, it refers to the policies of government that talks about the processes and methods by which decisions are made, laws are implemented, and government actions are carried out. The focus of procedural policies, they are concerned with the how decisions are made and how these laws will be implemented, and it established a framework for decision making, for public participation, as well as implementation of substantive policies. So you see how they are also connected to each other, because see, whenever you talk about particularly these policies, substantive and procedural policies, they have a strong connection to it, because through procedural policies, substantive policies would be operating. And these policies, these procedural policies, they set out formal rules and steps that must be followed to ensure that the government actions are legitimate, legal, consistent with democratic or institutional principles. This include procedures for lawmaking, administrative processes, as well as public consultations. So essentially, they establish the rules, and procedures for making and enforcing substantive policies. They look into the fact that the decisions are made fairly, there is a transparency, and it established the legal structure and pave the way for creating more substantive policies. Through procedural policies, you tend to ensure fairness and transparencies, and it also talks about accountability in the governance. So transparencies, accountability, and fairness in making policies in the government machinery system. They ensure that all stakeholders all stakeholders have a clear understanding of the rules, and that the decisions which are being made in a consistent and equitable manner. Procedural policies are they are often enshrined in laws, in regulations, or administrative guidelines, and they dictate how the government agencies operate, how courts conduct trials, and how elections are being made. So if I would say legislative procedures, rules of governing laws, of governing how laws are introduced, debated, amended, passed in a body, and it also it amended, such as parliamentary procedures are there in order to pass a bill or draft a bill, or when passing a bill in the legislative body. So then there's a judicial procedures are there, administrative procedures are there, electoral procedures are there, and it is also, when you talk about this procedural policy, they are primarily concerned with the law making, legislation, laws which regulate and which provides guidelines to the government agencies and how they need to create and implement rules, how they have to interact with the public, and what decisions has to be made. When talking about the judicial part of it, it talks about the processes and rules that the court follows, how trials has to be conducted, whether it is criminal proceeding or whatever course it takes. And policies also determine, procedural policy also determines and governs how elections are conducted, including voting registration, counting of ballots, dispute resolution in electoral contests. So these are part of the standard procedural practices which has to be adopted by the various governmental agencies and institutions where the decisions are made. And procedural policies are primarily the structural, the institutional aspect of the governance. Now we talk about the vertical policies and there is horizontal policies. Okay, now I will stop and I will continue the remaining part of the discussion, that is the types of policies, in my next lecture. Thank you everyone.